General Hospital spoilers reveal that Carly had experienced many moments of devastation in her life, but none struck with the same cold, paralyzing intensity as the moment she discovered Jocelyn had left for Europe without telling her the full truth. One look at the one-way flight confirmation sent a wave of dread crashing through her chest. Jocelyn, her daughter who always prided herself on honesty, accountability, and responsibility, had vanished from the life Carly thought she knew. The excuses, vague mentions of a personal trip, the sudden resignation from her lab assistant position with Henry, didn't sit right. They felt like a cover, a mask. And Carly, whose instincts had been sharpened through years of betrayal and survival, felt the weight of the lie immediately. Something wasn't just wrong. Something was dangerously wrong. What made it worse was the fact that Carly had only recently uncovered information about Henry that changed everything. He wasn't just a professor dabbling in advanced research. He had ties to secret programs, technology with implications far beyond the classroom, and connections that raised red flags even among WSB circles. Carly had accidentally stumbled upon encrypted documents while reviewing campus security access records. Documents that hinted at something deeply covert and deeply unsafe. And now, her daughter, her Jocelyn, had walked away from everything and followed that danger across an ocean. She wasn't running away. She was stepping straight into the unknown, likely without understanding just how deep the trap went. The realization shattered Carly's world. The fear gripped her throat. But what grew even faster than the fear was the obsession. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She replayed every recent conversation with Jocelyn in her mind, searching for clues she might have missed. The subtle changes in tone. The hesitations. The way she brushed off questions about Henry. All the signs had been there. But Carly hadn't wanted to see them. And now the consequences were unfolding at a scale that felt bigger than anything she'd dealt with before. This wasn't just about a daughter leaving without a goodbye. It was about secrecy, manipulation, and something that felt far more dangerous than Jocelyn could comprehend. And now that Carly had confirmed Henry was involved in classified technological development, possibly on the edge of legality, possibly beyond, she knew Jocelyn was either in grave danger or being used as part of a larger plan. The idea that her child might have been pulled into a covert operation without even realizing it was unbearable. What shook Carly even more was the idea that Jocelyn did know. That her daughter, proud and bold, may have chosen this path willingly. That she might have agreed to serve some shadowy agenda, possibly even working alongside Vaughn, who had recently been spotted near WSB-linked personnel. If that was true, then Jocelyn wasn't just being used. She was involved. She was participating in something Carly couldn't see, couldn't control, and might never understand. And that truth, if it was even truth at all, was a new kind of agony. The plan that Jocelyn had willingly or unwillingly walked into was more than a mystery. It had become Carly's latest obsession. Every conversation she overheard at Kelly's. Every news headline related to international security. Every encrypted message. Every half-erased file from Henry's office that she managed to access through back channels. Carly was piecing it all together like her sanity depended on it. Because it did. Her sense of reality was crumbling. The idea that the girl she raised had become part of something secret, something dangerous, without Carly even knowing, felt like a personal failure. A betrayal. But worse than that, it felt like the beginning of a disaster. Everything had changed. The world felt like it was spinning off its axis. Carly's reality was no longer rooted in family dinners or mother-daughter phone calls. It was now rooted in intel, in surveillance, in secrets and coded behavior. Her conversations with Anna had become strained. Her once trusting relationship with Dante now felt layered in tension. Everyone she used to rely on was either withholding the truth or actively protecting it. And that betrayal made the obsession grow. Carly wasn't just trying to get Jocelyn back. She was trying to break down a system designed to keep her in the dark. And as the days passed, She felt herself slipping further into a mindset she didn't recognize, where justice no longer felt satisfying, where the truth had become a weapon. This was more than maternal worry. This was desperation wrapped in control. Carly had always believed she could protect her children, even from themselves. But this time, the enemy was hidden in plain sight. And her child had already crossed the threshold. The mission Jocelyn was caught up in, whatever its true purpose, had already begun unraveling the fragile strands that held their family together. And the idea that it was all linked to Henry, a man who wore a mask of academic prestige while hiding secrets that could destabilize lives, made Carly furious. The changes were undeniable. And they were terrifying. Carly had become someone who couldn't sleep without tracing security files. Someone who watched airline manifests and international wire transfers like a government agent. Someone who questioned every official response from Anna, and every long pause from Dante. She had entered the same world Jocelyn had been dragged into, only without consent, without training. Without a way out. What made everything worse was the haunting thought that maybe this was all intentional. Maybe someone wanted Jocelyn to disappear from her life. Maybe the entire plan. The job with Henry, the sudden flight to Europe, the silence, maybe it was all designed to isolate her, to pull her away from Carly's reach. If that were true, then Carly wasn't just trying to stop a mission. She was fighting for her daughter's soul. And so she kept going. Even when people told her to wait. Even when Anna refused to answer her calls. Even when Jason urged her to let him investigate quietly. Carly couldn't. She wouldn't. Because the only thing worse than losing Jocelyn, was losing her without knowing why. And if obsession was the only thing she had left to hold on to, then she would embrace it. Because beneath that obsession was love. And love, for Carly, had always been loud, relentless. And willing to go too far. This time, it might need to. Because whatever Jocelyn was walking into wasn't just dangerous. It was changing everything. And Carly could feel it. This wasn't just a detour in her daughter's life. This was a point of no return. Carly had never felt a fear like this, not even in her worst battles with betrayal, death, or heartbreak. This wasn't about broken love or bruised pride. This was about something deeper, primal, more consuming than anything she'd ever experienced. Her daughter, Jocelyn, had vanished into the shadowy world of secrets and danger, flying off to Europe under vague pretenses, leaving behind only questions and a sinking feeling in Carly's chest that something was terribly, unforgivably wrong. And now, standing before Anna, Carly wasn't just desperate. She was on fire. She needed answers. She needed help. But most of all, she needed protection for her child, protection from a world that was spinning wildly out of control. What Carly didn't know in detail, but had already begun to piece together in fragments of gut instinct and whispered rumors, was that Jocelyn hadn't left on some innocent personal journey. She had become entangled in something much bigger, something darker. Her name was now quietly attached to files connected to the WSB. Her resignation from the lab wasn't about stress or self-discovery. It was about something tied directly to Henry, the professor with a clean smile and the dirtiest secrets Carly had ever encountered. Carly had seen enough, heard enough, and felt enough in her bones to know that Henry wasn't who he claimed to be. He wasn't just a charming academic with revolutionary ideas, he was someone building a technological nightmare behind closed doors. She had seen encrypted research logs referencing memory conditioning, experimental implants, behavior modulation. At first, she thought it was science fiction. But now, with Jocelyn gone and the WSB involved, she knew it was all too real. And so, Carly came to Anna, not as an ally, not even as a friend, but as a mother backed into a corner. She begged Anna to protect Jocelyn. To use whatever authority or influence she still had to shield her daughter from what was unfolding overseas. But in that pleading was something more, a challenge. Carly wasn't just asking Anna to act. She was daring her to see. To see that the secrets the WSB had been keeping were no longer abstract threats. They were here, they were personal. And they were unraveling the lives of people they were sworn to protect. Anna, who had already begun her own quiet inquiry into Henry's activities, felt the weight of Carly's words like an anchor. Because deep down, Anna had already suspected that Jocelyn's involvement in the operation had gone too far. Vaughn's reports had become erratic. Files related to Dalton's technology had begun to disappear. And Jocelyn, once just a promising recruit, now found herself at the center of something far more dangerous than anyone had intended. What Carly didn't realize, what Anna herself hadn't fully admitted, was that this moment, this conversation, was an opening. Carly's passion, her refusal to be manipulated, her demand for clarity, lit a fire beneath Anna that she hadn't felt in years. Carly wasn't wrong. The system was broken. The mission had gone too deep. And Henry, behind his university credentials and perfectly managed persona, was orchestrating something monstrous. He wasn't just building a new technology, he was redefining human identity. Controlling memory. Altering perception. Turning young minds into programmable tools for power. And now Jocelyn was right in the middle of it. Anna's instinct screamed for her to keep quiet, to follow protocol. To protect the mission. But Carly's voice cut through those rules like a blade. If you know what's happening to her, and you stay silent, then you're letting it happen. That sentence echoed in Anna's chest long after Carly left her office. Because it was true. Protecting the mission couldn't come at the cost of losing a young woman. And the more Anna reviewed the evidence, the missing data packets, the altered reports, the suddenly classified communications, the more she realized the depth of the cover-up. Henry wasn't just running a rogue experiment. He was hiding crimes beneath the name of progress. Crimes the WSB had unknowingly allowed to flourish. Carly's plea had become a turning point. Her obsession, born from maternal instinct, had given Anna something she hadn't had before, clarity. Clarity that Jocelyn needed saving, not just from danger, but from the system that was pretending to protect her. Clarity that Henry needed to be stopped, not just exposed. And clarity that this entire operation had ceased being about security or intelligence. It was now about justice. About right and wrong. About reclaiming control from a man who had quietly taken it from everyone. So Anna began digging. Not as an agent, but as a woman determined to undo the damage done. She reopened files. Bypassed authorizations, and traced the digital fingerprints Henry had left behind. And the deeper she went, the more she realized that Carly had been right all along. Jocelyn was being used. Henry's entire project was centered around field testing behavioral technology on unknowing young recruits. Not only was Jocelyn a participant, she was the central subject. Her cognitive patterns, emotional responses, even her loyalty to her family were being measured, molded, and manipulated. The madness Carly spoke of? It was real. It wasn't just metaphor. It was scientific. Engineered. Monitored. Documented. And unless Anna acted fast, that madness would claim Jocelyn completely. But now, armed with this new awareness, and fueled by Carly's fire, Anna had a chance. A chance not only to save a young woman, but to dismantle the infrastructure of deceit Henry had built around her. A chance to expose the truth, and in doing so, protect every other young agent being drawn into the same nightmare. Carly didn't know yet what Anna was planning. She didn't need to. She had already done her part. By speaking the truth. By forcing confrontation, by refusing to let fear silence her, she had reignited a fight Anna had nearly abandoned. Together, these two women, so different, yet now united by purpose, were standing at the edge of something massive. Carly had lit the match. And Anna was ready to burn down the lie. Because saving Jocelyn wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was a reckoning. Anna stood alone in the darkness of the WSB hangar, eyes locked on the sleek jet that would soon take her across the world. She had faced dangerous missions before. She had tracked war criminals, dismantled covert operations, brought down tyrants hiding behind layers of secrecy. But this felt different. This time, she wasn't chasing a threat. She was chasing a truth. And that truth was wrapped in layers of pain, deception, and something far more haunting, the shadow of Britt. When Anna first began to dig into Henry's files, she wasn't expecting to find anything beyond another tech-obsessed professor using his charm and intellect to cover up suspicious activity. But as she pushed deeper, as she decrypted files that were never meant to be seen, something unexpected surfaced. Names. Medical histories. Codes that didn't just reference subjects, they referenced people. The woman who had vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind only broken hearts and unanswered questions. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. A chilling, deliberate pattern. Her unwavering certainty that her daughter was being pulled into something far more dangerous than a basic mission, had ignited a different fear. Carly, who had been brushed aside by officials, had unknowingly exposed the rot beneath the surface. And Anna couldn't ignore it any longer. The truth was simple, but horrifying. Britt had been the first subject. The original case study for a technology the WSB had never approved, a technology designed to modify emotional responses, suppress trauma, and alter memory without detection. The WSB had shelved the project, at least, that was the official story. But Henry had kept it alive, evolving it in secret, using academic research as his cover. And Jocelyn, intelligent and emotionally vulnerable after years of personal loss and upheaval, had become the perfect test case. What was supposed to be a simple assignment had become a psychological trap. Jocelyn's every move, every decision, was being measured, dissected, recorded. Anna could see it now, so clearly it made her sick. The mission wasn't just about surveillance. It was about pushing Jocelyn to the edge to see if she would break the same way Britt had. But what no one had anticipated, what even Henry hadn't planned for, was that Britt's past wasn't staying buried. It was bleeding into the present in ways no algorithm could predict. Because Britt's trauma hadn't ended with her disappearance. It had infected the system. Her mind, her breakdown, her silence, it had left a fingerprint on the very technology now targeting Jocelyn. The obsession with control that destroyed Britt was alive and thriving, recycled through clinical detachment and bureaucratic indifference. Anna realized with terrifying clarity. Jocelyn wasn't just in danger. She was walking through the blueprint of Britt's collapse. And that made this personal. Anna had failed Britt once. She had looked away, trusted the wrong people. Followed protocol instead of instinct. And Britt had paid the price. If there was even a sliver of a chance that Britt's mind, her suffering, had been manipulated, if she had been broken not by chance but by design, then the WSB had committed crimes far greater than Anna had ever imagined. And now, history was repeating itself through Jocelyn. The changes in Jocelyn had been gradual but obvious. Her emotional detachment. Her sudden departure. Her resistance to contact. It mirrored exactly what had happened to Britt in the final weeks before she disappeared. The signs were all there, only this time, Anna wouldn't ignore them. As the jet prepared for takeoff, Anna reviewed the final pieces of data she had collected. Fragments of suppressed files. Interviews with former colleagues. Even secret audio logs Britt had recorded near the end, logs filled with fear, confusion, and horrifying clarity. Britt had known she was being used. She had begged for help in coded language. She had whispered truths that no one had listened to. And now, Jocelyn was echoing those same words. This wasn't just a rogue mission anymore. It was a legacy of obsession that needed to be destroyed. Anna's plan was no longer to extract Jocelyn or confront Henry, it was to burn the operation to the ground. To expose every lie, every experiment. Every twisted justification that had allowed this cycle to continue. But more than that, she needed to uncover one last truth. What had really happened to Britt? If she was alive. If she was hidden somewhere under sedation or surveillance, Anna would find her. And if Britt was gone, then Anna would make sure her memory wasn't rewritten into a convenient WSB footnote. Carly had been right to be afraid. The world Jocelyn had stepped into wasn't built for honesty or safety. It was built to bend people until they broke. And then to call their collapse a failure of character instead of a consequence of manipulation. But not this time. Anna would find Jocelyn. She would face Henry. She would tear through the layers of bureaucracy and deception with the fire Carly had reignited in her. And whether Britt was a ghost or a prisoner, Anna would make sure her story ended with truth, not silence. Because this wasn't just about one mother's fear or one agent's guilt. This was about justice for two women. One who had already fallen. And one who still had time to be saved. In the shadowed corners of Europe, where whispers of betrayal echoed louder than gunfire. A new war was beginning, one that had nothing to do with nations or politics, and everything to do with buried truths, shattered identities. And the fight to save someone the world had long declared lost. Britt was alive. Not in memory, not in mourning, but truly. Hauntingly alive, held somewhere in the depths of a facility designed to rewrite minds, erase history, and rebuild obedience from the ruins of will. And now, Anna, Jocelyn, and Jason had become the only line between her and permanent oblivion. It started with fragments, Jason's relentless search finally uncovering encrypted transmissions that bore the impossible. Britt's neural signature. Her voice, distorted by interference but unmistakable, calling out through layers of technological interference like a ghost desperate to be heard. Jason, who had never truly stopped believing, who had never let go of the possibility that Britt's fate wasn't sealed in death, clutched onto that whisper like a lifeline. But it wasn't just about finding her, it was about understanding what had really happened. And the deeper he went, the more he realized she hadn't just been kidnapped or hidden. She had been transformed into a blueprint. The same systems now threatening Jocelyn were born from the same science that had broken Britt. And that connection changed everything. Anna had already gone rogue, throwing WSB protocol aside to follow the trail of Henry's technological monstrosities. But when Jason showed her the proof, the signal, the location ping, the faint, flickering plea from Britt's consciousness, something inside her snapped into focus. The fight wasn't just theoretical anymore. It wasn't about secrets. It was about people. About the woman the WSB had abandoned. About the young girl unknowingly walking the same path. About ending the cycle before it consumed them all. Jocelyn, meanwhile, had evolved from a recruit into something far more formidable. The pieces had come together, her fading memories, the strange gaps in time, the emotional confusion she couldn't explain. Henry had targeted her from the beginning, not just as a participant in his experiments, but as a perfect candidate to carry on the Britt model, an evolved version of compliance through scientific control. But now Jocelyn saw the truth. And with her clarity came fury. Not only had she been manipulated, but her emotional unraveling mirrored the very system that had once destroyed Britt. Her mission, once shaped by naivete, was now powered by rage. The three of them, Anna, Jocelyn, and Jason, formed an alliance bound not by command, but by conviction. Together, they planned a full-scale breach on the remote compound nestled in the Bavarian Alps, where Britt's signal originated. This wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't protected. There would be no reinforcements. But there would be fire. What awaited them was beyond anything they had imagined. The facility wasn't just a prison. It was a living system, biometric locks, cognitive defense mechanisms, live neural testing. And in the center, sedated and suspended in stasis, was Britt, monitored, prodded, connected to machines that mapped her very soul. Her mind had been accessed again and again, data harvested for the purpose of building better compliance models. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was a template. And the scientists surrounding her weren't just researchers, they were zealots, devoted to the idea that obedience could be perfected. The rescue was a war. Not just of bullets and strategy, but of memory and emotion. The systems protecting Britt were designed to respond to thought patterns, fears, even guilt. Jason faced simulations of his past failures. Anna was forced to relive her own WSB mistakes in recursive loops. Jocelyn nearly broke under the pressure of a hallucination designed to convince her that Britt's suffering was her fault. But they pushed through, not because they were trained, but because they loved. Jason was the first to reach Britt's chamber, smashing through the final firewall with brute desperation. He called her name, over and over, until her eyes fluttered open. Her voice was broken, soft, but real. She remembered. She knew him. And in that moment, Jason vowed she would never be alone again. Anna neutralized the lead scientists with brutal precision, leaving them bound and locked within the very neural systems they once used on others. Jocelyn, shaking with adrenaline, accessed the control node and shut down the facility's mainframe, erasing every trace of Britt's data from the server, erasing the blueprint that had haunted them all. But the consequences were immediate. The destruction of the lab sent shockwaves through the underground tech world. WSB Command, already suspicious of Anna's rogue actions, issued a warning. European agencies tied to Henry's investors began mobilizing. The war that had started in silence was now erupting into global attention. Files leaked. Whistleblowers emerged. The truth was no longer containable. And in the center of the storm stood three figures: Jason, holding Britt like she was life itself; Anna, bloodied and defiant, no longer willing to serve a corrupt silence; and Jocelyn, eyes blazing, reborn from victim into survivor. The mission was no longer about escape. It was about exposure. About telling the world that people had been turned into projects. That science had been twisted into obsession. The war in Europe had just begun, not with armies, but with truth. And the disaster that followed wasn't measured in destruction, but in revelation. Because Britt's return wasn't just a miracle, it was a warning. A reminder that what was done in the name of progress had a cost. That control disguised as care was still a cage. And now, the cage had been broken.